It's Wednesday, the 11th of March. From the MEN newsroom, this is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. New concern over mumps. Figures show a dramatic increase from last year here in the northwest, raising concern for parents. Also coming up, the annual Stop Smoking appeal that's this year focusing on how much money you could save.
Do your sums a day, 20 a day, you're going to save 2,300 quid a year, and if you smoke 40 a day, it's 4,000 to 5,000 quid.
And the family who've had their TV confiscated for being too noisy.
Well, I'm deaf in both ears. My little girl's deaf, so if it's loud, then to me it's not loud.
Good afternoon. Our top story this lunchtime is a big rise in the number of cases of mumps here in the northwest. The total this year's 8 times what it was last year and is already approaching the total for the entire previous 12 months. In 2007, 159 cases were reported across the area. Last year, that increased to 287. So far in 2009, there have already been 223 notified cases which are being examined to see if they are confirmed cases. Low take-up of the MMR jab is being blamed. Well, we can now speak to Dr Will Welfare from the Greater Manchester Health Protection Agency. Will, thank you very much for joining us this lunchtime. First of all, how concerning do you find this rise?
It's very worrying. We're seeing a rise in a very preventable disease, which is unpleasant and causing problems. What we're seeing now is the result of the problems we had back in the end of the 90s with the concerns around MMR. Children didn't get vaccinated at that time, so they're now susceptible to mumps as well as measles and rubella, and we're seeing the consequences in the 15 to 25 age group especially.
Mumps is obviously a condition that we've heard a lot about, but because there's always been quite a high vaccination rate, it's never been so much of a concern. I think there's a lot of people that have forgotten how many problems it can cause for people who contract it, haven't they?
I think so. It's when you have a successful vaccine programme, people forget about it, and they've forgotten about how unpleasant mumps is, the swelling of the face, which can be very uncomfortable, the fever, generally feeling unwell, and in males, the swelling and the inflammation of the testicles, and in women of the ovaries. And in some cases, you even get inflammation of the lining of the brain as well. So it's an unpleasant disease that in this small number of cases can have complications, but for most people experience, it's really quite unpleasant.
So what would you like to see happening, and particularly with regard to parents who are perhaps worried about this?
Our simple message is to focusing mainly on the 15 to 25 age group, both them and their parents. If they haven't had 2 MMR jabs, they should go to their GP and arrange for them to have that done. And,
you know, should parents be concerned about these figures that we're hearing today, given the rise is so dramatic, do you think?
I think your opening showed it very well. This is a big rise, and it's a big rise in something that can be prevented very easily with a very safe vaccine. So our simple message would be to take up this vaccine that's available free on the NHS.
OK, Will Welfare, thank you very much for joining us. Well, we have been out getting some reaction to this from parents across Manchester.
Well, it's not a good thing, is it, really? If you can prevent having mumps, then prevent it, I would think. I think all my grandchildren have had the vaccination for MMR, so, you know, hopefully they'll be safeguarded.
Well, I think they should have them done, the injections, definitely. I mean, I know there's people say having them can make them like have the mumps, but I'd say definitely have them, definitely. You can't risk it. They do need them done.
Well, because I think all children should be vaccinated. It's important, isn't it? I know my daughter has all her children vaccinated. So, no, I think it is important. Obviously, you don't want your child to end up, you know, if you've got a perfectly normal child and then they have the injection and they end up with that, you don't want that, do you? So, yeah, it does frighten people and it does put people off.
Staff at ITV Granada have been told the planned move to Media City is off. Workers will be staying at the Key Street site for the foreseeable future after negotiations between ITV and Peel Media, the owners of the site, broke down over finance. It's also understood Coronation Street will also not now move there. At least 10 people, most of them children, have been shot dead at their school in Germany. An attacker wearing combat gear burst into the building in Winnenden near Stuttgart, and a search for him is now underway. Police say he appeared to be shooting at random. Several other people have been injured. The latest we're hearing from TV channels, there are unconfirmed reports that a suspect may have been arrested. At least 9 people have been killed when a gunman went on a shooting spree in Alabama before turning the gun on himself. He burnt down his mother's home, killed some members of his own family, and then fired at people standing in their porches as he drove past. Investigators have yet to identify who he was. A child is among those who are injured. A survey's found a third of smokers are considering cutting down or quitting because they can no longer afford it. 9% of the 9 million people who smoke are expected to use today to try to give up, being No Smoking Day. Georgia Calvin-Smith reports now on the effect lighting up can have on families.
Now, all you smokers out there that are hoping to give up your habit, today is the day. It's official No Smoking Day. And last year it was pretty successful, with about 1 million people taking the chance to kick the habit. Now, Ali, what is it all about this year?
Well, here in Manchester, we're working on saving money through stopping smoking and also on protecting children from tobacco smoke by not smoking in the home and not smoking in their cars. If they're going to carry on smoking, we want them to smoke outside the house. Preferably, we want them to stop altogether, of course.
Of course, but you know, if you do smoke in front of your kids, what effect does that have on them?
The child's more likely to smoke themselves, and also they get sick. They're likely to be more poorly than children who are living in a smoke-free environment. Children from smoke-free homes more likely to get ear infections, more likely to get severe asthma, more likely to miss more school through being poorly, and also smoking around babies is a major cause of cot death. So we'd really like people to get help and to stop.
Well, Emma actually works with young people who've already taken the decision to start smoking. Emma, how much more likely is it for a young person to start smoking if their parents already smoke?
It's much more likely for children to start smoking if their parents are smokers, and quite a lot of young people who really want to quit find it quite hard because their parents carry on smoking when they're making an effort to stop.
And do you find that young people who are already smoking are more likely to quit than adults, or...?
I think young people are really motivated to quit quite often when we see them, and they've got a lot of get up and go to try and do that, but quite often when there's people smoking around them, they find it a bit harder. So it's a really positive thing if a parent can stop when a child's starting to stop as well.
Well, as I said, today is the day to quit if you are so inclined. There's lots of help and advice out there, and there's also a helpline number which I've put on the bottom of the screen if you need any more advice. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
Thanks, Georgia. Silent vigils are happening across Northern Ireland this lunchtime after 3 days of violence that saw 2 soldiers and a policeman killed. People are gathering in cities including Belfast, Lisbon and Downpatrick to protest against the attacks by dissident Republican groups. 2 people are still being questioned by police over the murder of Constable Stephen Carroll. CCTV pictures of a teenager who was last seen in Manchester city centre at the weekend have been released. William Wright from North Wales hasn't made contact with his family since Saturday. The 19-year-old was on a night out with friends on Canal Street who say he got into a taxi with another man early on Saturday morning. His family say it's out of character for him to go missing and they're extremely worried. Staff at Manchester Airport are being balloted on possible strike action. Unions are angry at restructuring plans, which they say will result in job cuts, pay cuts and changes in shift patterns. More than 100 Swissport ground handling staff will get ballot papers this weekend. If the walkout goes ahead, it could badly disrupt flights around the Easter holidays. A row between 2 neighbours in Rochdale's led to a 52-inch plasma TV and hundreds of pounds of stereo equipment being seized. It all happened in a dispute over noise. Ben Bland's been to meet the 2 families concerned.
Their main £2,500 TV taken away by council officers, Paul and Amanda from Faylinge now sit with their children in the kitchen to watch their favourite programmes. Enforcement officers visited on 3 occasions and said the noise was too loud, but the couple insist they've done nothing wrong.
Well, I'm deaf in both ears. My little girl's deaf, so if it's loud, then to me it's not loud. So I don't know what the problem is.
And yeah, we have had the music on, but to a reasonable amount. I mean, we was decorating 2 of the times.
But they said, we put this in a letter to the council, we were decorating, it weren't a good enough excuse. Yeah. And then one complaint is, we must have got up out of bed at 12:05 at midnight and put the stereo on for 20 minutes when we've got a 13-week-old baby.
But next door, the neighbour who made the complaint had a very different side to the story.
It's been every single day, it's been every other night, and the children were being disturbed, so we felt we had no option but to report it to the council. Because we'd been over asked to turn it down, but instead of the normal, like, we'll turn it down, we started getting the abuse. It's actually made me physically ill, because you sort of walk in from work and you come home and you want a bit of peace and quiet, and all you walk through the door and all you can hear is the thud coming, and you just go, oh my God, is that going to go on all night? Is it just going to be a few hours? Is it? And it's just one of those, you actually just wait, and then you're waiting for something to happen. And when there's nothing happening, because it happens so often, you're just waiting for something to happen all the time.
While this row in Phalange continues, a spokesman for Rochdale Council said noise nuisance is a serious annoyance. It is unacceptable for such disruption to people's lives to continue. Where we can, we'll take action against inconsiderate perpetrators and bring relief to victims. Ben Bland, Channel M News.
Right, Mike's here now with the sport, with details of tonight's match between United and Inter Milan. But first, some bad news for the West Indies.
James, that's right. Thank you very much. England failed to beat the West Indies in the fifth and final test, and as a result slipped to a 1-0 series defeat. The home side's second innings closed overnight on 1-1-4 for 8, and that was enough to hand them their first major series win for 5 years. Staying with cricket, Lancashire have just secured a £2.65 million investment from the North West Regional Development Agency. That's to upgrade their facilities and help secure the future of international cricket in the region. Now, in last night's Coca-Cola League One action, there were wins for Stockport County. That was 2-1 at home against Hartlepool, while further down in League Two, Macclesfield slipped up 2-0 at home against Accrington. Bury could only grab a goalless draw at Morecambe, but there was better news for Rochdale, who beat fellow promotion candidates Bradford City 3-0, with Adam Melifondra scoring 2 second-half penalties. But tonight, all eyes will be on the Theatre of Dreams, where United face Inter Milan with a place in the Champions League quarter-finals at stake. So Alex Ferguson has been taking time out to explain how he feels United's performances on the European stage have improved over the past few years.
Well, I think that reflects the growing confidence and sense of the maturity as a team. I think that over the last 2 years, I think you have to say that some of our performances in Europe have been very good. The Roma games and the Barcelona games, you know, I think that there is very good evidence there. And I think that most importantly, I think you see the massive improvement in our team from 2 years ago in the semi-final against AC Milan and until today, and we have the far more maturity and understanding of the European Champions League.
Now, for his part, Milan boss Jose Mourinho, he doesn't appear too concerned. The first leg between the sides ended without a goal.
0-0 away at home is not a very good result. It's a result that leaves lots of question marks in the air. It's not an easy result. And we were a bit disappointed because a draw at home is never a great result too. So I think was a game of a little bit of frustration for both sides. I lost the semi-final against Liverpool with a 0-0 draw at home, but I won a Champions League semi-final with a 0-0 at home in the first leg. It's not a result that leaves somebody in a better position. If they win, they go through. If we win, we go through. If we draw with goals, we go through. And the difference between all these three situations is a very, very narrow distance. Is a goal, is a detail, is a mistake, is really a little difference. So I think it's a game of it's a game for people that can hold the pressure, I believe, because it's a game of high pressure for both sides.
Now switching to rugby union, and Sale's Luke Abraham, he was handed an 8-week ban for headbutting. That was during a game against Saracens. It's the second time this season he's been found guilty of such an offence, and even head coach Kingsley Jones believes the ban was justified.
I think it's very fair. You know, Luke's been sort of had his ear pulled and lost his composure, and fully regrets what he's done. And you know, he needs to learn from what he's doing and work hard now when he gets the opportunity to come back. He's a very good young player with a lot of potential and a big future, but he needs to make sure, you know, that he toes the line and really looks at his discipline to make sure he comes back stronger, and maybe needs a haircut too.
And Abraham's ban will run until April the 29th. But that's it from me for today, but please try and join Sam Goodman, who'll be with you from 5 o'clock with more on the build-up to the big game at Old Trafford this evening.
Mike, thanks very much for the update. Stay with us, plenty more to come, including why more families could soon be getting help to go online. And what's in a name? We look at some of the area's most high-profile organisations that have been getting a new identity.
GMEX was a name that Mancunians knew, but it wasn't known globally, it wasn't known nationally.
Manchester Ringway was... it was called that to distinguish it from the earlier airport.
We decided that we needed to drop the word hospital because we are so much more than a hospital now.
Welcome back to Channel M's Lunchtime News. A quick reminder about our website, channelm.co.uk. On there you can always find this programme to watch again, along with any of our reports. On there at the moment, the church that thinks by knocking down part of the building it could get more people turning up on Sundays, and why ashtrays across Manchester city centre are being redesigned after a run of thefts. That's at channelm.co.uk. A plan to cut 150 jobs by the owners of the Manchester Evening News is angering unions. Bosses at Guardian Media Group Regional Media, which is Channel M's parent company, have said they want to shed nearly 80 journalists along with other non-editorial workers across the group. They're hoping some will be voluntary redundancies, but there will be some compulsory job losses to follow. The cuts will hit the Manchester Evening News and the 22 weekly papers it also owns, with all their individual offices closing except Stockport. The group has titles covering 7 of Greater Manchester's 10 boroughs. Chief Executive Mark Dodson says while he regrets the plans, the cuts are inevitable.
We're in unprecedented times as far as the regional press is concerned. We've seen an alarming drop in revenue from our key classified verticals, and what that has meant is that it's put real pressure on the profitability of the company. And what we need to do to remain profitable is to make considerable savings within inside the business, and that has meant that we had to make 150 people redundant in MEM Media this morning.
I think it's a bit of a heavy blow for us to carry on our own, and I think we really want to ask questions of the Guardian general management, the general board, saying, well, OK, we need to make cuts, we can make some cuts, we don't need to make these many cuts, not this deep, and what are you doing to help the process?
A campaign starting to try to get more than £6 million of donated cash given back to the Christie. It was held in an Icelandic bank which has now collapsed, and the cancer hospital's been told it's not done enough to be awarded compensation. MPs are already getting behind the push to have that decision overturned, and it's hoped other politicians and celebrities will also get involved. £300 million is to be spent rolling out internet access to households who don't currently have it. There are more than 1 million children nationwide who don't have access to a computer at home, and a third of families can't get online. The idea is being piloted in Oldham, where Kevin Duffy is for us right now.
Yes, thanks, James. Now, you may recall back in the autumn, Gordon Brown made a promise in this conference speech that low-income families would be given free or low-cost access to the internet, and today that promise is being made good. And with me is Neil McLean, who's in charge of this government scheme. Neil, how does it all work?
Well, basically, if you're a family and you're entitled and you have kids in the system, you apply and you get a grant and you buy the computer, the connection and the support.
And you get broadband access as well?
And what you get in the package is you get a computer, you get broadband access for a year paid for, and you get support, insurance, all those sorts of things to set your mind at rest about it.
What does it all cost?
Well, if you fall into the entitled category, i.e. you are a low-income family, it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, basically...
It's free.
It's free. I mean, basically, government's saying that this technology is now so important in schools, for learning, for how we live our lives, that if you can't afford it, because you happen to be not that well off, then government ought to do something about it. And that's what's at the heart of this scheme.
Now, where do you apply? Because a lot of people are going to be saying, I'd like some of that.
Well, if you live in Oldham, which is one of our pilot local authorities, we're piloting in 2 local authorities first, you just go down to the Civic Centre, to the one-stop shop, and there you are. Start applying.
Fantastic. Neil McLean, thank you very much. Well, there you have it, James. That sounds pretty good, and there's going to be a lot of people who hear about this and they're going to be wanting to get involved. It still is a surprise. I think most people will agree that there are families, there are school children who don't have access to the internet, don't have access to a computer, but it looks as though this scheme is going to change all that. Back to you in the studio.
Kevin, thanks for that. Now, you might remember a few weeks ago we told you about Wythenshawe Hospital changing its name to the University Hospital of South Manchester. It's not the first high-profile name change there's been in the area, and it got us thinking just how important is it to get the right name. Nina Warhurst's been finding out.
GMEX or Manchester Central, Ringway Airport or Manchester International Airport, Christie's Hospital or the Christie. Just some famous Manchester names that have been changed, but why?
GMEX was a name that Mancunians knew, but it wasn't known globally, it wasn't known nationally. Manchester Central's given it a real identity. It is at the central of Manchester. It's Manchester's meeting place.
So Manchester's on the map internationally, and so names should change accordingly. So is that why Ringway Airport became Manchester Airport?
Manchester Ringway was it was called that to distinguish it from the earlier airports at Manchester Barton, which was to the west of the city. In 1955, some 17 years after the site of the airport had changed to Ringway, it was no longer felt necessary to include the word Ringway in the title.
So the airport outgrew its rival and took its name. But why would you change the name of a hospital?
We decided that we needed to drop the word hospital because we are so much more than a hospital now. We are in a phase of fantastic development where we are setting up new Christie centres in other parts of the region so that we can provide Christie care closer to home.
So names can be changed to simplify, to modernise, or simply because they're no longer relevant. But we are traditionalists here in Greater Manchester, and we don't always take too kindly to change. What do you know this building as?
The GMEX.
The what?
The GMEX.
Not Manchester Central?
No. The GMEX.
Even though it's been Manchester Central for a year?
Yeah.
It'll always be the GMEX?
Yep. GMEX.
Not Manchester Central?
No.
No?
It's always been GMEX.
GMEX.
Not Manchester Central?
No, it's GMEX and it should always be GMEX. That's what it is. Don't change things at work.
So it seems it's one thing changing a name, but quite another making it stick. At Manchester Central, they say the change has brought fame, success, and presumably more money. So I reckon it must be worth a try. Ninja Warhorse, Channel M News.
Now to take a look at the lunchtime weather forecast. With the details, here's Michelle Eagleton.
Quite a mild day across Greater Manchester, seeing highs of between 10 and 11 for most of us. Might be a few more showers this afternoon over in Preston and Accrington, but really nothing to worry about because by tea time we will see it clear up. So expecting some sunny spells, a really dry and dry night, although the next couple of days are quite a mixed bag for you. I know that tomorrow, mixture of sunshine and showers. Friday, mainly cloudy but dry. Saturday, you're going to need your umbrellas, but ditch them by Sunday as it's all clear and dry.
This is Channel M, our top stories. The number of cases of measles in the northwest is running at 8 times what it was last year. The total so far has almost reached what it was for the whole of the last 12 months. Low take-up of the MMR jab is being blamed. At least 10 people are dead after a shooting at a school in Germany. Police are searching for a gunman who got into the building wearing combat gear and opened fire at random. And it's predicted 1 in 3 smokers are considering cutting down or quitting because they can no longer afford cigarettes. Those are the latest headlines, and that was the lunchtime news. We'll have more on all those stories in our early evening news with Andy Crane from 5 o'clock tonight, but from me and the rest of the lunchtime team, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.